So Davina, thank you to be here with us. I'm so pleased, happy. It's a joy and an honor to have you with us on this Healing the Family Tree Summit. And we know that you are some hours away from Europe. Do you want to say where you're located actually?
Yes, and thank you, Sophie, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. So this is being transmitted all the way from the Peruvian Amazon. So yeah, quite some distance.
Yes, direct to the source of ancient wisdom.
Indeed, yeah.
Wow, thank you. Well, Davina, so I can tell a little bit more about you. You know what I know from you. Maybe I can also give how we met, because we met really in Peru back to 2015. It was
Indeed.
a beautiful, life-changing experience. You know, a meeting with like-minded people and with a shamanic experience with you, with mountains and places and spirits. It was lovely. And I must say that the common link with you is that book. I know it's a lot of light, so it's in French. So this is The Dream Whisperer, but in French, that has been offered to me by a great friend of mine who's also on the summit. Roma, yes, and that was my link with you. This is how I did contact you, and I'm so grateful for that.
It shows your level of trust in spirit as well, that you would come all the way to Peru on the basis of a book. I'm very impressed.
Yes. Well, we contacted each other and we had a talk, and I felt, wow, this is I have to go. It was a kind of calling, you know. And sometimes it's good to answer the calling.
Absolutely, so, always it's good.
Yes. Davina, I will give a few words about you, because there's so many things we can say. I know people would love to connect with you someday. So this is a pre-recorded session because, okay, in forest, and we are happy that we can have the Wi-Fi with you today. So I give a few words about you. So you are a Feng Shui expert, and also you do practice as a shaman. You can tell us more if you want to share with us. You've made regular TV appearances and you gained huge popularity at Hay House Hotel for this book that I show in French, The Dream Whisperer, and also another book, so Feng Shui Made Easy, so that people can find on website. You spent nearly 30 years practicing Peruvian shamanism, and you have a great fortune to have worked with some powerful and gifted teachers along your journey. Okay, you said it, you're currently living in the Peruvian Amazon, saving a piece of rainforest for future generations. Thank you.
Well, if I survive the experience, it'll be thank me.
My goodness, how did it come to you to leave your place in UK and to land in Peruvian Amazon?
It is the power of trusting spirit. I have to say, I've always been a mountain shaman. My true passion and love is where I met you, up in the Andes of Peru. That's where most of my training has taken place. I've never really been attracted to the jungle, too many creepy crawlies, too many things that can eat me. However, such, you know, never say never to the universe. And I was actually running a shamanic training in the UK, a natural wisdom leaders course. And somebody, the assistant that we had helping us with the food, said, oh, there's this piece of land for sale. And I was holding, you know, 20 people through some very deep processes. So I was like, no, I can't take anything else. I'm doing this job, go away for the minute. Anyway, she was quite persistent, and she organized a Skype call with my business partner and shamanic partner, Nazami, at the end of the call. And I just happened to walk past the room and they were on this Skype call. And I thought, I recognize that voice. And I went, Oscar, is that you? And actually the land was owned by one of my very first shamanic teachers from, you know, 20, 30 years ago. And I was like, okay, that's not any piece of jungle then. And then I paid attention, and the rest was history. And I have to admit, still, even though, because we've owned the land for 3 years, I mean, our student, and it was very easy. I mean, we, you know, we literally put one email out to our students and raised the money to buy it. So it was kind of meant to be. And for 2 years, I still resisted it. But like in terms of, I was never intending to come and live here, that's for sure. Never intending to do that. And then the last time, the year before last, when I was here, I had a very profound experience. And Puma, my shaman that I work with in the mountains, was here with us, and of feeling deeply at home. Like I was lying on a mat in a wooden hut in the middle of the Amazon, and I felt like I was in a, just to give a cut, I felt completely at home. Every cell in my body was at one with the forest. I felt like I was lying in a luxurious 6-star hotel, like in this, just this incredible, just in terms of the softness and release of my body. And Spirit said, you have to come here and you need to broadcast from here. Well, I have to say this is my first broadcast because, of course, I live in a place with no Wi-Fi, so I'm not quite sure what I'm meant to be broadcasting. But on that, I literally gave up my entire life. I sold everything I have in England and moved here this year. And just then, of course, I moved here, and then COVID happened. So, you know, people plan and God laughs, don't they?
Yeah.
So things have been very different to how I imagined. We were expecting to obviously run retreats and have tourists, and now none of that is happening. So I've spent a lot of this year planting medicine plants, chopping down rainforest, clearing space to plant more medicine plants, etc., etc.
What an amazing story. What are the choices? You're very courageous, Davina. I know you.
Either that or mad. There's always a fine line.
Sometimes we need a little kind of madness to make things emerge the way we envision them. Because yes, between dreams and reality, yes, sometimes we need a little bit of madness. Or is it, yes, audacity? I don't know. Do we use audacity in English, by the way?
Yeah, it's a lovely word. I love audacity. It's that panache. It's that ability to do what somebody else might not, with a little bit of it's more of a French word. It's that ooh la la. More of the French.
This is you. I mean, yes, you. Thank you. That because you open, ways of seeing a situation differently. Okay, we can plan sometimes, and we are so many people in these very specific times. We plan things, and voila, this virus is coming. There are many things on a geopolitical level. So many things are going on, and then we need to adapt. And at the same time, we also need to remember our vision. And okay, sometimes we need to switch a little bit, or we need also to stick sometimes with our vision and find the resources to make it happen anyway when you feel this is really coming from the inner core. So I have a lot of admiration for you, you know it. I mean, you are such pretty lady, and then able to be diving into the Amazonian forest and in all of these things. Very much congratulations, kudos.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And so, Davina, what I find amazing is that the day that we plan the replay of right now will be the 5th of February. And I just saw that it will be the World Feng Shui Day.
That's good.
Yeah, which is our topic today with you.
Yes.
Yes. So I took it as a beautiful sign, and thank you again that you allow us to have this conversation today, and that we can bring some information, resources to the people who are watching us, listening to us. And then, so I wanted to ask you first this question. Is there a specific event or situation that brought you to learn the art of Feng Shui?
It's an interesting one. I reflected on this question, and I've always had an understanding of how homes or different spaces, when you move into a different space, which everyone has if we're tuned into it, where some places we immediately like the feeling and other places we don't like the feeling. I was always able to see spirit as a child, so I could see ghosts and I could feel whether a place was uncomfortable. But I had no language for it. I grew up in a time where words like shamanism, feng shui, they were never even heard. They were not part of my, they're everywhere now, but they were not part of my childhood vocabulary. And so spirit has very much led me to all of these things that I do now. And I've been very blessed in that way, because I was pushed into a very normal, inverted commas, education system, and was expected to become like, you know, an accountant or a doctor or a lawyer or something, something normal, something mainstream. So I'm very blessed that Spirit managed to find these teachers and find these ways through for me. But the thing that first got, so I've always have an understanding that homes or environments affected us, but I didn't understand what that was. And then actually a very good girlfriend of mine sent me a book, Karen Kingston's, I can't remember, I think it's Feng Shui and Sacred Space. It's her first book that she ever wrote on the subject years ago. It was like in the mid-90s, early 90s. And that it just made sense. I was like, oh my God, this is what I've always known. This is it. And from there I went on to train, and I was very blessed because actually the Feng Shui Internet School International that I trained with, there were no teachers at that stage. There were no schools of Feng Shui. So this woman, Gina Lazenby, she actually set up this organization, and she literally flew in people, experts in all different topics from all over the world to kind of, in a sense, cobble together this training for something that didn't really exist. I've also worked in Hong Kong and China, and we also had people come into Feng Shui our offices, and I noted, like, real proper experts, but, you know, venerable old Feng Shui masters. It takes 40 years for somebody to become a Feng Shui master in China. Wow. So they weren't interested in teaching some, you know, young white gringo the sort of secrets of their methods. So I was very grateful to that school because it gave me a very eclectic training. Because Feng Shui is a little bit like if you had an architect in your house, you could have 6 architects, they'd all give you a different idea and a different plan. It's the same with Feng Shui. You could have 6 Feng Shui experts, they'd all give you a slightly different flavor of what might be right for your environment, and they'll all be correct. Because there's a lot of different methods from it. How I see Feng Shui is effectively, it's like acupuncture. So you have acupuncture for the body to clear the energy flows and make you feel more energetic and healthier and get rid of all those little symptoms that aren't quite right in the body. Feng Shui is like acupuncture for your house. You move the furniture, you change the colors, you shift different environment, and it changes the chi flow. So it allows you to maximize your health, your wealth, your happiness in that particular physical environment. It changes the relationship with the space. I think if we can see it like acupuncture for the house, it's the best analogy for really understanding how it works.
I love it. And that is very, it can talk to people, because probably more people know about acupuncture in the body, make the parallel with it. That's something very, now I'm watching around me, you know, and I feel, oh, as making a good sense of acupuncture.
So yeah, because you do, because in your home, then you can understand the negative effect of clutter. Because if we have stagnation in our meridians, that's why we go and have acupuncture, to get rid of that and get it blocked. So you now can understand that if you try to open your front door and you can't move because of all the bags and coats and shoes in the way, then there's not much flow of opportunity into your home. And then things start to get stuck. You know, you don't have the clarity or clear thinking if your desk looks like a mess because there's no flow in there. They also, because it comes from China, and obviously acupuncture comes from China as well. So they're based in the same ultimate philosophy of the I Ching, the Book of Changes. And that gives rise to the map of the Bagua in terms of the trigrams and the hexagrams. Also, the relationships between the family members of the basic trigrams in the I Ching, that gives a lot of information around Feng Shui. But also, more importantly, the 5 elements. So again, we have the wood, metal, water, fire and earth in our bodies. We have the same elements in the items in our house, and getting the right balance of the 5 elements also lends a very particular flavor to the Feng Shui that we can bring into our environments.
Oh, wow, amazing. Thank you. Because in the same time, you give us, you know, the principles, and the main elements that do intervene into Feng Shui. Thank you for that. And Davina, are there different ways to apply Feng Shui? Are there different methods, or, I mean, between the ancient way and is there a new way? Or
it's a complicated, if you start to look up Feng Shui, it gets very, very complicated. There are many different schools that have evolved. There is the old Chinese masters that will calculate everything down to the last millimeter in your space, and if you haven't got something precisely aligned. But again, if you think about acupuncture, there are precise technical acupuncturists that will follow the map and get it right, and then there are more intuitive acupuncturists that just get a sense of what's flowing in the body through the pulses. And I think that's the same again for Feng Shui. One of the things that most Feng Shui in China was done before a building was actually built. So it would be done on the land, it would be done on the site. You'd get the Feng Shui master in before you built a premises. So obviously in the West, we do a lot of retrospective Feng Shui. So the house is already built, then and then it's normally when things go wrong or things haven't been happening in the way that one might like, then you call a Feng Shui person in to adjust the energies and adjust the balance. So yes, it has adapted, but then I think all good practices adapt. You know, we are in, look what's happened with COVID. Humanity is in a massive process of deep adaptation right now. There are only two things we can ever guarantee in this world. One is change and the other is death. It's the only two things we know for sure. Things will change and we will die.
Yeah,
there isn't anything else. Everything else is up for grabs. You know, just those two things. And Feng Shui is the management of change. So again, I would like, you know, it's very important that we don't think of Feng Shui as something you do it once and it's done. We need to check. We need to. Feng Shui is a living practice. It doesn't have to be great, sweeping, big changes every day, but sometimes just a vase of the right coloured flowers on the desk in a certain way, or having a good spring clean and a clutter clear makes a huge difference to the flow of energy. So if we get stuck, like one of my absolute favourite, simplest, easiest ways to change one's like environment is to let the winds of change. So if you feel very stuck, or you've been sick, or you've had a particularly bad argument with your partner, or something awful has happened, or you just like don't know what to do, open all of your doors and windows for 5 minutes. Open all the doors and windows. Just let a full breath of fresh air, the winds of change, blow through. And even that can give us the movement, can give us the shift we need in order to make new choices, to order to take a deep breath and go, yep, there are ways out of this. It might seem hopeless, but suddenly a new idea will come in, a new inspiration will come in. We'll be able to take a step forward towards something.
Oh, isn't
Clutter clearing, you know, again, if you get stuck, go and clear a drawer out, go and spend, you know, half an hour clearing a cupboard. You'll be amazed what will come from that. You know, people don't, I mean, clutter clearing, I think it is a sacred act. Right, people don't like it, and it's the thing, you know, we know what it's like even from when we were kids and teenagers. How many times have our mothers and fathers told us, for goodness sake, clear your room up, tidy your room, you know, it's that great age-old issue. But actually it is one of the most powerful tools of Feng Shui. Go and clear a cupboard, go and clear your room, go and tidy your space. Just that process can make such a difference to what happens.
Oh, wow. Thank you. And well, the situation, the global situation, we have to stay longer at home. Sometimes we even have a lockdown, or we need to go back home earlier. In France, actually, this is the case. We need to be back home at 6 p.m. for the next weeks. And so everybody in the world, or most of the people in the world, have a longer time at home by themselves, in family or with other members. And then so this is probably why it's important that you, Feng Shui master, you can also share knowledge, and that we can also learn about that and be aware that it's so important that we can have an effect on our home to feel better.
I think it's
without changing everything, without changing signatures and so on.
I agree with you, Sophie. And as this COVID scenario continues for longer, this is becoming more and more important, because there are these waves. I mean, Europe is now in another lockdown phase where people are being told to stay at home. And people are not used to being in their homes. They're used to going out to work. They're used to the children going to school now. And we often live in quite small spaces. Yes. And suddenly everyone's, you know, and there's a lot of mental health issues coming about. So we have to, you know, as William Morris said, home is metaphor of the self. I think that is a deep truth. So our external environment reflects our internal world. So again, if you've never had time to clear your space up because you're always out at work, and this is a perfect time to really dig deep and clear away all the clutter first. The clutter has to go first. You've got to give yourself some space to live in.
Oh, wow,
I
it's
think
like
that's really important. And so you've got more time at home, so you have time to do that. You want to be able to create, like our body is, we think of our body, if you do any health regime, we try to think of our body as a temple.
indeed.
Right? Your home is a temple. Create your home so that it is a sacred space. It's all about relationship. You want to feel that when you come home, when you're at home, that your home is giving you a warm hug hello. If you look around your space, that's different for everyone. We all like different type of hugs. Some people give you a quick, fast hug. Some people want to hold on to you a bit too tight. Some people have a soft hug, a hard hug, a squeeze. There's all different types of hugging, isn't there?
Indeed.
I wish we could still do it. Sadly, we can't. So we need our homes to give us hugs now because people are not able to.
Oh,
So
well,
it's like looking around our space and thinking, how can I change things here? What can I change? What can I move? What can I get rid of? What can I clear? How can I move things around my space so it feels like I'm getting a warm hug, that I've got this sacred space, that this is a temple that I've created. I think it's also important, because many more people are working from home, that we try to have designated areas. I think it's really important that there is somewhere where you can sit down and eat. And if you have a family, that you sit down and eat as a family, or even if you're on your own, you are not sitting with a tray on your lap on the sofa watching nonsense on the telly. That you actually have a space, you light a candle, it's a space so that you take time to nourish your body with food. Good food is what builds our immunity.
Indeed.
Good food, fresh air, exercise. These are the things that really build our immunity and stop us getting viruses.
Yeah, so I always think
absolutely important. Families, I believe families that eat together stay together. I see that in my 30 years experience of clearing houses, when I've obviously been brought into a lot of houses where there are divorces and things have gone wrong. Often those houses, in fact, most of the time those houses you go in, there's nowhere to sit and eat as a family. Or if there is, they don't use it.
well,
Or there's a big beam down the middle of that table, or there's some cutting energy that comes in and do that. So I think families that eat together are the ones that stay together, because and eating together, like putting the electronic devices away, a no phone bar at the table.
Wow, yeah. Which
so that we do not lose the art of conversation.
Indeed. Oh, Davina, you mentioned many things, and that when, for example, you say giving a hug to the home, or let the home giving you a hug. So it's like that the home has a spirit on its own. Some people may say even that home has a soul on its own. And so I wanted to ask you, what is your it's more than a feeling, it's an experience, because you mentioned also that you can feel when you enter in a home if there is, family spirit, yes or no, more or less. How do you feel? How do you feel that?
I don't know if I would use the word soul. I would use the word spirit. I think every piece of land, every home has a spirit, undoubtedly. That's what gives rise to that feeling of good energy, bad energy. There are spirits in pieces of land. You could call, in land, it's often called the land deva. Deva, the spirit of the land. And you can call on the deva of your land and your space. You can incorporate that into your language. I do, we have it in our language, don't we? Walls have ears. Now I know that's because of eavesdropping on the other side of them, but it's there is a truism there. And we see this, the Chinese call it predecessor chi.
How?
So it's like every predecessor chi. So what's happened before? So, for example, history repeats itself, and the history in spaces also repeats itself. We can see this in our high streets. That's the most obvious example, where you'll see a shop or a business that it doesn't seem to matter what business takes over. Every 6 months it goes bankrupt. It always seems to be the shop that's up for sale, or the business that's suddenly going through a change of management, because it has a history of bankruptcy now. It's like imprinted onto it. And until that imprint is cleared, you would call that the spirit of place. Until that is cleared or changed or come into right relationship with it, will shift. So in our houses, it's very important. That's why estate agents find it very difficult to sell houses from debt, death, and divorce. the
Yeah.
3Ds. All estate agents know, because people may not have a language for it, but they feel it. They feel the arguments that have soaked into the fabric of the wall. They feel the sadness of the debt that's in there. They can feel the loss of a death that's occurred. So now through space clearing, those things are all possible to change and cure and clear through space clearing or other situations. But in terms of what you're asking, so you need to build a relationship. I don't think of a house as a pile of inanimate bricks and mortar. I do think of your house as a living spirit. Your home is a living spirit like you are. It may not be quite as chatty as you, but if you start talking to your home, if you start asking your home, what do you need from me? What do I need here to make this a really good home for my family? You'll be amazed at the information you start to receive. Just ideas will pop in the head, intuitive thoughts, or a friend might suggest something to you, or you suddenly, watch something on television that's the perfect design, answer or solution to it. You need to engage in this relationship. The more you engage in this relationship with the spirit of your home, the more powerful it becomes, the more your home will start to really hug you, hallowed, and the more your home will speak to you.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you. So it's really engaging conversation, as you say, and so having the intention to we want to do something to get better for ourselves, for our loved ones, and so then to be listening.
Yeah,
To,
and it's not a heavy. It's not a. The best results I find come from making it light. It's like a chat with your friend.
Mm.
It's not like this big, oh dear, great house, please, like, it's like, oh, I'd really love to get, hello house, how you doing? I do stroke the walls of my living space. I just go, how are you doing today? You all right? What do you need? You okay?
Oh,
And it's
lovely.
amazing. And then that's all I do. It's just a very gentle conversation. And then as I'm going about my day, I might get an idea of, oh, I need to get this, or actually that needs to go, or I need to clean that room, or I need to shift a piece of furniture here. It's more that, yes, you can set a very specific, it's like you can talk and just say, oh, the children are all arguing. How do I bring more peace with the children and the family here? And then maybe the house says, well, why don't you get a nice round table to sit down and eat together? And ban telephones or something, maybe.
Yes, very organic things. So again, it's not a matter only of your nature. It's also a matter of intention and having the clarity of so asking the place what could be done, and so with very simple things like creating more boundaries is also a way so to create a beautiful spirit at home.
Yeah, and you also, it's about energy. So does your home feel cold, for example? So what could you add to warm it up? Does it feel hard? So what could you add to soften it? Where are those balances as well? Is it full of curves and so, which are nice, but then you are very creative, but you don't ever practically ground things. So maybe you need a bit more structure and straight lines somewhere to help you ground things. Like, for example, it's well researched that round desks and spaces are very good for creativity. So wonderful for creative projects, wonderful for good conversation around the dinner table. They're not great for getting your accounts done or filing your tax return. For that, you need a nice straight desk. You need a rectangle, square, boxed, boundary structure. You need the structure. If you try to do your tax return at a round table, it will be very difficult. Just add extra pressure to yourself that you don't need. So again, if you think about your children's homework, they need to be at a straight lined desk to do it. That's going to help them get their homework sorted out better than if they were at a round desk or sitting with it on their laps.
So it's a matter of shape. The shape of things have an
shape things. So the shapes relate to the elements, the 5 elements. So square, rectangle shapes are to do with earth, and the square, stocky sort of that, and that, so that's also to do with earth, as in plants or rocks or crystals, things that they ground the energy. It's very much the practical 4 walls of your room. That's why houses give structure. They have 4 walls. There's the earth element right there. So then water is more fluid, and it could be a fish tank, or it could be organic furniture. It also colors relate to all of these elements as well. Fire is a candle. Now, fire always is a very, very powerful transformational element, but always less is more. So we all know that if we go into a cold day, we walk into a house and there's a fire in the grate, everyone goes up and, oh, it feels good, doesn't it? You can warm your hands by the fire, and it's very magnetic and attractive. But fire out of control can destroy, you know, like a forest fire or something of that nature. So just sometimes a candle is enough with the fire element, to light a candle for dinner, or to light a candle every day, just to bring that in. It needs less of that element. The wood element gives growth. It's fantastic for planning. Wood element is very tall, you know, upward shaped. So growing upwards, that's why the traditional Feng Shui cure is growing bamboo, because it's very fast, grows upwards, gives that element of the wood energy. And metal is arched shapes, round shapes, circular shapes, but proper, you know, not organic like the water, which is more wavy, but those, and the metal itself, gold, silver, copper, metal colors, stainless steel, etc., etc. That gives a very sharp, structural, you know, definite energy. And all of these elements, so understanding the 5 elements is very important to understanding the energies of your home if you want to go deeper. But for most people that perhaps are not going to really research the depth of this understanding and go into Feng Shui in a big way, then simply you can do so much. Please, you know, viewers, whoever's listening, you can do so much just by engaging in the conversation with your home. Just by deciding to understand that this is a living energy that you are surrounded by. It is not inanimate. It is a container. It's your temple. Think of it as your temple space. Create it. So in your bathroom, instead of that, make it a spa. What would it be like to have a spa bathroom? It doesn't take much. Some nice fluffy towels that are all the same color. Get some scented candles around your bath. Maybe some, you know, flowers or a plant in there. A pretty picture on the wall. It doesn't take a lot to suddenly turn your just functional bathroom into something that feels like a spa treat.
Oh, wow, I like it very much. Maybe I'll think about it. Bringing something more in the bathroom. I love it very much because it's very simple and easy tools for us to apply. And again, it doesn't take so much. It's more a matter of having heart open, ready to listen and to engage a conversation. I like it very much. You mentioned the elements, and I heard that, for example, when you make, let's say, a test or for people in their room or in the home, so it is also related to birth date. Is it true for Feng Shui that you?
Yeah, Feng Shui does have a time aspect as well. It does relate to both time and space. But then, so there are timings. There are timings to begin things, timings to end things. There are, like, for example, you mentioned World Feng Shui Day. So every year, the changes come. So the map, it's called Flying Stars. It's a particular school and form of Feng Shui. This is much more complicated. We're now getting into deep calculations, but it shifts, and then different directions become the aspiring star for the year or the lower star for the year. Now, phenomenal. If you have a master come, I mean, you do need a specialist to be able to do that. I can't possibly, unfortunately, tell you, you know, what's going. You can look up you could Google the Feng Shui changes for the year, and you could, it was the south this year, so it was not good to build in the south of your home. So you need to keep the active, the dangerous areas, if you want to use that term, you need to keep them quiet. And I do know some good stories of why it's wise to do it. A friend of mine who is a Feng Shui expert, she'll remain nameless because she should have known better. And she's actually exceptionally good. However, she, in her wisdom, decided to experiment on herself, and she decided to change her kitchen on a year where the area of her kitchen, that was just a really bad idea to, you know, get builders in. You needed to keep that air quiet. Well, it's years. I mean, it must be 4 or 5 years later, that kitchen's still not built. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong.
So if there is an agenda to renovate a living place.
Yes, if you are going to renovate, then Google the Feng Shui directions for the year, because they change every year on the 4th of February.
On the 4th. Okay.
Yeah, well, 4th, 5th, you know, I mean, World
Yeah.
Feng Shui is 5th, but it's always around that beginning of February, 4th, 5th of February.
Oh, maybe we can put the link for
Yeah, there's plenty of sites that'll just give you those changes for the year.
Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah. So, Davina, is there a criteria that when you enter into a living place, that you, as a master, you have been asked, or as an expert, and then is there a specific criteria that will let you know, oh, there are a lot of things?
A specific what? What did you say?
Criteria or specific, yes, criteria or let's say element that you can feel that many things are going on here. There are a lot of things to fix for the energy to be flowing again in a place. I don't know, is it a matter, is it intuition? Also,
no, I mean, it's both. It's intuition combined with knowledge.
Yeah.
And experience. So it's all those three things. So I use all my senses. So I'm seeing what I see. So if I can't open a door, then I know something's blocked. You know, if you can't walk into a room and flow around a room because a chair's right in front of you, then it's a problem. You need to be able to, you know, I notice how you flow. Like the first thing I do when I arrive in a space is I ask the client to walk me around their home. Mm-hmm. And I notice how they walk me around. Because I let them lead, and I notice where they take me first, what they show, how the flow of the space goes around, all that, because that will give me a lot of information. I'm aware of the smell. So I notice like the smell in each room, things change, how I feel. I notice what's going on in my body when I walk into a different space in their room, in their lounge. Like you can tell if a space is being used or not used. You can feel if it's not had people in for a long time. It's got that musty sense or a cold scent, whether something feels warm or cold. So you can hear, you listen to the language of the client. Like, for example, I can tell you one example from a long time ago. This woman called me in, and as she was showing me around her home, I just said, well, so tell me, what's your story of this space? You know, always ask the client. And she was just like, oh, I never have any time. You know, I've got no time for anything. I'm just so busy. I'm completely overloaded. Just got no time. She kept going on about no time. And right in the center of her house, right in the area of health, she had all of these. I don't know if you know them. They're very old fashioned, these little calendars, and they have wheels. So they're like universal calendars, so they last forever. So you can just change the wheel for the date, the month, and the time. They're a very old-fashioned thing. She had a whole collection of these, like they're like antiques, right in the middle of the house. Every single one telling a different date and a different time. I'm like, no wonder you've got no time. You know, time is completely confused here. It's like, you know, so and 2 clocks that are not working. So again, if you've got clocks stuck in your house, then you're going to get stuck in your progress or times that. But this was just like the dates and times were crazy. So we have to look at the symbols of things as well. That's another very significant thing. Like, for example, if your relationship is not going well, then look at artwork that you have on your walls, particularly in your bedroom, for example, or if you know the bagua, you can see it in the area of relationship, which is the southwest corner of your home, or if depending on if you use the compass school, or if you stand at your front door looking in, is the top right hand corner.
Okay.
And look in that area. Are there all single things? Have you got a great big, you know, ferocious tiger print sitting on the wall, which is maybe causing a bit of aggression? Or are the things in that placement, you know, have you got the ironing board out or the TV in that area? So your relationship is with work or the television rather than with your partner, etc. You know, what is the symbol? What is it reflecting back to you? Another way, if we look, for me, again, Feng Shui is like an outer dream. Like, you know, because obviously that's how you met me, through my work in dreams and interpreting dreams. Dreams is our inner landscape of what's really going on. It's the form of metaphor. It's the form of significance. In a sense, our home, because it's the most intimate space, it's where we feel safe to express ourselves. This is what's so specific about home. It's that place that we feel we can shut the door on the world and we can just be who we truly are. It's the only place we feel safe to do that on the whole. So we tend to put a lot of clues. It's a very intimate space and we do it unconsciously. We don't realize, you know, it's only like because I can come in and I can read that stuff, right? It's kind of blind to everybody else. If you have, it's like seeing someone's home as an external dream.
Oh, wow.
If you walk around your house and think, right, everything in my home is as though I had a dream. So if this was in my dream, how would I see it? Well, how would I interpret it? What does this mean to me? What is it showing me? What is it letting me understand?
Oh, yeah.
That's another good way of looking at it, to see your artwork. And also, like, when you look at artwork, does it give you pleasure? Or is there a good story behind it? What was happening to you at the time that you bought that piece of art? Or was it a sad story? Maybe you bought it with your husband and now you're divorced and it was a painful divorce. Do you really still want that hanging on the wall, reminding you of that? It may not consciously remind you, but it's reminding your unconscious all the time.
That is fascinating. This is fascinating. So the furnitures, they also have an energy on their own. The
Sure.
energy is also our relationship with them would unconsciously very interesting. So I guess if when we take time to watch around us, maybe indeed we may have a whole time to go through one thing after one thing at a time, and how do we feel with it?
I always, you know, and you can do this quickly. You can do this quickly in terms of really trusting your own knowing. So if you're wanting to clear things and you have like books or things, you know, you've got a lot of clutter, for example, the fastest, quickest way is to literally pick it up, hold it. Hold it in your body. Does this feel good to me or not? Just say yes or no. Ask your body, yes or no. You'll get an instant answer. Does it lift your energy or lower your energy? Why would you have anything in your space unless it's your tax return that you absolutely need, and that doesn't raise anyone's energy, right? There are a few, you know, things you have to have. But other than that, if it's a extraneous item, then does it lift your energy or lower it? And if it lifts your energy, it stays. If it lowers your energy, it goes. Job done. Don't think about it.
Oh, very good advice. I'm sure many people will, you know, take it seriously and making the test with the things around. And then I'm doing it myself. I will do it myself. Right.
The other thing to be aware of is people like secondhand things and antiques and things with history. Remember, like homes have history, then the history, you know, remember, energy doesn't disappear. It just changes form. So if somebody's hands, many, many years of hands have held an object, some part of the energy of all those hands is in the object. So it's always be very like, so if you're going to bring in secondhand furniture or secondhand jewelry, it's good to cleanse it. So you can cleanse it through smudging it, lighting some incense, you know, white sage or nitrates are good clearing incenses, or kind of clapping around it, making sure you really clean it. Even cleaning it very thoroughly will have it with the intention of clearing out the old energy will help.
Oh, that's a very good point again. And then you mentioned a second hand, but also that some things might have belonged to people before. So maybe we have been given as a gift. It can be a jewelry or something else, or a photo or something. So it brings me to this question. So is there a relationship when you are called at a home? Can you feel the relationship of the psychogenealogy of the people in the house? That can be either a family house or not a family house, but can you feel that sometimes the house is related to psychogenealogy?
It's an interesting one, that. I thought about that question. There are certain, it really is predecessor chi for me. So I don't know if that's so related to the actual family tree and the epigenetic type of timeline that you're talking about. Certainly there's predecessor chi, so history repeats itself. If the people got divorced in that house before you, or they were in debt, then it is likely that if that house is not cleared for you, you will likely start to repeat that pattern after some time. People, I see it all the time. You'll go to a house and you'll find out that they're just getting divorced, and the last two people that own that house also got divorced, for example. You certainly get it within that sense. I do think people that inherit family homes that is an issue. Like, for example, I have someone I know right now inherited her mother's home. Now, they did renovate it and do it all up and have made it their family home, and it was all going well. But now her teenage children are replicating very similar patterns to what happened to her as a teenager with her mother in that house. So yes, there is definitely something there, and that's been cleared. And it's like there's something of the energy that just cannot, you know, because especially when it's to do with family and children. And I don't have enough experience of this. I only know one home that I've really, because you don't often get invited into stately homes, but it's stately homes and those kind of places that have been passed down through generations.
Yes.
They would be the ones that would be really interesting to review that topic with. I did one such place in Switzerland once. And yes, there was such a heavy energy of all of, and like, you know, history was just repeating itself through the family eons and, you know, everything. And it was not a good history. And it's like, but they're very attached. You know, you've got the antiques in there that are right back. Nobody's going to dare change the great works of art that are still hanging on the walls. And there's something in keeping that. So then you replicate the old patterns. You don't ever shift that, you know, that DNA, if you like.
Oh, wow, that's fascinating.
And you can also feel it on land. I think where you get that more specifically is where things have happened on land. So on, like, there's a particular estate in the UK where they have a lot of like parties and events. So you get to visit this stately home. It's kind of open from that point of view. And you can feel it. You can feel, you know, that there's something not right there, because when you go back in its history, it was actually basically built on slave trade money. Oh. And you can feel there's something in there that there's always not quite a right relationship between the owners and the visitors in that sense. There's this there's just something in that energy.
Yeah, there's something in the air. Also, you can feel it that way. And then maybe many people can feel it, but sometimes we are not aware, or even what we feel. We may feel uncomfortable, but it's difficult to put a word on what we feel sometimes, specifically in some places. So, and Davina, does it happen that you can have people coming from other places that you, for example, UK, do you have people in other countries that are making a request to you? Yes.
If I'd been able to travel, I would have been in Moscow clearing a house this year, but sadly I couldn't get from Peru to Moscow this year.
Yeah.
No, I've cleared places, yeah, or particularly Europe, because that's obviously easier to travel. But yes, I mostly Europe.
And then, so now that we're coming into the digital age, can it happen that you can make a Feng Shui session?
Yeah, I do. I'm just rejigging. The last couple of years, because not also it's quite expensive, you know, to have the full works is not, you know, that cheap, because it takes a lot of energy and time and calculations, all the rest of it. But I've been offering Zoom. So because now with modern technology, people can take me on a tour of their home through the Zoom, through the camera, like you could take me on a tour of your flat. So I can do a huge amount of the basic Feng Shui in terms of placement and colors and shifting things, and I've had some great results just doing Zoom sessions for people going on a tour of their home. That's a really easy, quite relatively cost-effective way of getting an awful lot of good Feng Shui done these days. I also, because things are against, I also space clear from a distance. In fact, I did a lady's apartment in France, as it happened. Yeah, recently, where she'd had a horrendous time with builders over the years, and she just got to the end of a tether, and she booked me to do a distant space clearing. And I have the most amazing, she said, oh my God, she said, I never really thought this would work. But she said, and she hated it. She didn't want to go in her apartment anymore. The builders had ruined it for her, and it's completely changed around. She said, oh my God, she said, I'm in love with my apartment. It's all, and suddenly the builders have apologized and it's all going. So yeah, amazing things can happen. So yes, there are ways without having to do a visit.
Wow, I love it. So indeed, so French people, can you speak French, or do people speak English?
Yeah. That's it. I mean, I came from a school and education system where French was our second language. We had to learn French. It was
Oh,
compulsory.
really? I didn't know that.
And funnily enough, because I'm now in Peru, desperately trying to learn Spanish, all my French is coming back. So every time, it's funny, there must be a place in the brain where languages are kept. So every time I try to speak Spanish, I've come up with a French word that I didn't even know I knew.
Oh, that's why French people love you so much.
It's very funny. But I don't speak French well, no. I'm not. I mean, I missed that gene, I think, somewhere. I've got to unlock that part of my brain where language ability resides, because it's not my natural ability, that's for sure.
Oh, well, you do also speak, the universal language, because I was part of some of your circles, that amazing circles. So I know you do also speak the language of the universe. So that's the best one. And plus, so it's beautiful. And Davina, I wanted to ask you, so another last question. Do we have, is it okay?
Yes, sure.
Because you made this powerful change, this year ago when you came to Amazonian forest. And so your project, would you like to tell us a little bit about your project?
Well, yes, Sipapu is a very special place. As I say, it was my very first, in fact, weirdly, I mean, just weirdly synchronistically, sort of all of my really powerful shamanic teachers, like Don Oscar, who was the first guy that I really connected with. I didn't do loads of work with him, but I follow his kind of Pachacuti Mesa tradition, and that's what I went on to train with somebody else with. Don Pandora, who really was my ayahuasquero teacher. Puma, who isn't so much Puma's more my friend and my mentor, but I worked with his grandfather originally, and when Puma was a teenager, but he's my dearest shamanic friend. They've all been to Sipapu. Individually from me buying this land. So it's very weird if you think about the chances of that, this random piece of land, and it's 3.5 hours upriver from the nearest town. However, I mean, so it's very special. It's like a portal, this place. It's like I mean, its name Sipapu comes from the Hopi word for the kiva, so it's like an umbilical cord. It's the belly button. And it's the place of emergence and return. That's the meaning of that word. So I know I've been called there to be some kind of sacred guardian to this space. Of course, our business plan, as I say, we were meant to be open. We did a retreat for a Danish group just before COVID, but now COVID's hit. So we are looking at having to re-engineer it, because I'm obviously paying for it through my savings at the moment, because there's no income, because there's no tourists, there's no people, there's no people to come and do training courses or sit with us. So it's an interesting development, but then we're not alone in that situation. So many people sadly have lost their businesses and their livelihoods through this process. And so I'm not quite sure where it's going, but it's 47 hectares of the most biodiverse region in the Amazon. It's horrible. The town we live near and this has been a real eye-opener for me this year, because I thought this is an area, it's not an ayahuasca tourist area, it's a very ecological tourism area. People come here to go to the jungle, to see the biodiversity, to see the animals, etc. However, the lodges are even mining in their own back gardens now, because this is a mining town. So of course, gold price has gone through the roof because of the COVID situation and the global economic situation. So this town is thriving. It's like being in the 60s, Klondike Gold Rush. It's horrible. So all the illegal activities are increasing. So it has quite a heavy energy, and you do feel kind of very vulnerable just trying to keep this little bit of rainforest, because 47 hectares sounds like quite a lot, but in terms of the rainforest, it's minute, it's tiny. It's like this little parcel in the middle where if we leave the land, the illegal loggers will come in. We've got 47 castagna trees. And for example, let's just tell you the story of this is how fragile and extraordinary nature is. So just the story of our castagna trees, which Brazil nuts, it's the Brazil nut tree. So the Brazil nut trees only grow in this particular area. There's a strip, goes into Brazil as well, but in this particular climate, because the Brazil nut tree can only be pollinated by one type of bee that has a tongue long enough to get inside the blossom of the Brazil nut. And that bee can only survive if it gets its nectar or food source from one particular type of orchid that needs to grow near the castagna. So this is the only place in the world where Brazil nuts come from.
Okay.
And
Wow.
you know, they don't grow everywhere. You can try and grow them elsewhere and they won't grow. And there's only one animal, the agouti, that is tough enough, because the Brazil nut, when it falls off the tree, and it does, you know, can kill people. It's this big, and it weighs about 2 kilos. You need a hard machete to get through that. And then when you open it, all the Brazil nuts that you are commonly would know of seeing in their shells are inside that. And then you've got to obviously get into them to actually get to the nuts. It's quite some process. And that's how vulnerable a Brazil nut tree is in existence in terms of its pollination. So if the orchid dies, or then the bees don't go, and then the Brazil nuts don't live, and then they don't. And if the agoutis, which most people eat for dinner around here, right, if they lose their population because they get tracked or eaten, then they can't naturally spread the Brazil nuts, because they're the only animal that can get inside the shell. They're the only ones that have got teeth strong enough to actually break through that shell and naturally pollinate the plant. So just that's just one example of how extraordinarily vulnerable and resilient nature is in its magic of situation. So yeah, that's kind of why I'm here. But you know, we're looking at re-engineering everything at the moment, because obviously it's not sustainable. In our current situation. And I don't know if, you know, it would be nice, oh, you know, everyone thinks, oh, we'll just get vaccinated and things will get back to normal, but that's not going to happen. It's, you know, this is we were born for these times. This is the changing of the ages. Every single prophecy talks about this. Indeed. And so, you know, and we have to wake up to the fact that we actually can't go back to normal, whatever normal was. Change is the only way. You know, but it's I think our collective choices right now are hugely important, and we need to be very aware of keeping connected, and keeping connected to our true values and our truths inside, because the mining here, the illegal mining particularly, is literally, you just up river from us, a couple of hours, there's massive scars. You can see it if you look on Google Earth. Massive scarring where they use huge amounts of water and mercury, that they flush the soil out to get these tiny flakes of gold. It's flakes. It's not like they're getting big nuggets out the ground. It's tiny flakes. So they have to use, and they literally, it erodes the soil. Nothing can grow on it. The Amazon, I mean, the Amazon is incredibly, you know, fecund. It grows. I can, especially in rainy season, I can watch it grow. I mean, and yet when the miners are finished, nothing can grow there. That's how profoundly they kill the land.
I am so sorry to hear that. And plus you are in the middle of it. So no, it's not only from the news, you see it with your eyes and you can feel it.
And it's really hard. We can't find people to work for us because people don't want a job in permaculture at the wages we can pay, when they can go and, you know, do some illegal logging and mining and get well paid for a couple of days. And it's because it's a transitory, migratory town. You know, people come here to kind of make their fortune and disappear. It's that kind of place in terms of the energy. But of course they don't make their fortune. They often get ripped off, and it's a you know, only the people that know. And it's a center for drug trafficking, human trafficking. Wow. You know, you think of all the illegal activities, they all seem to. So I'm like, hello, universe, why exactly did you put me here?
Wow. Again, you are so courageous to make all these choices. So we wish that we can also support, you know, your mission. So of course, I'm saying it again, we can find all the links about you on the project.
Yeah, for the project, it's Sipapu, SIPAPU.co. It's just .co, not .com, just .co. Yes. That would be great. People can see what we're doing there. Have a look. There is a chance to donate if people felt called. I mean, even the tiniest amount, 50 pence pound, is worth it. It saves the trees. It keeps the castagnas growing.
Indeed. And plus to see, to be able to understand, to feel what you spoke about Feng Shui, about the awareness, the consciousness of how we live in our place inside home. This is also a reflect of perhaps how we can appreciate what is outside. So nature, and how we need to take care of it. So thank you so much, Davina. It was so insightful. And so we have a lot of things simple but yet easy to implement to make our living places a better place, and then that we can also enjoy outside better and appreciate it. Davina, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you, Sophie. Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, it's a great pleasure.